Good evening, good afternoon or good morning whenever you're watching this. My name is Karen Griffith. I am an inner freedom and embodiment coach. I also coach around wellness, happiness and mental fitness. So sometimes you'll hear me say I'm a wellness coach or a happiness coach or just a coach. Anyway, I thought I'd talk about what's coming up for me today. I had a lovely time at the photographers. You may or may not know that I had a photo shoot a few weeks ago and I got to see the results of that photo shoot. Very exciting. I was able to inject some of my creativity into the shoot and how I wanted to look and feel. And you may have seen from an earlier post that I wanted to embody certain energies that of the ladies, goddesses, queens that I've come to admire as I grew up to become who I am today. The main one being my mother, who passed away 2 years ago on Sunday. Shaka Khan, Grace Jones, Maya Angelou, Donna Summer. I think that's all of them. Yeah, I believe it is. So I had a lot of fun reviewing the photographs. It took a couple of hours to make the decision. I posted one up today. I didn't show too much because although I was comfortable, I actually thought this is all about me, and I felt comfortable sharing a little snippet of what I got to approve as my final 20 pics. So I'm very excited to see when that comes about. But the reason why I mentioned it is, when was the last time you've done something for yourself totally unapologetically, unashamedly, just for you, about you? I would invite you to do the thing, get into action. As you know, I love getting into action, and I like to think that I encourage many others that follow me and my content to take action on those very things that sometimes they are, let's just say, a bit, I think I'm going to use the word a bit, resistant to, for whatever reason. And just step outside of your comfort zone and just do the thing. For me, it was a photo shoot. I'm going to be doing a number of things in celebration for turning 50. That's just one of many, just as I sort of peel back the layers of my experience, what I've learned, the lessons, and how I see myself moving forward. So I like to think that that photo shoot is a true embodiment of how far I've come in the last 10 years since turning 50. Also how I've learned to embrace certain feminine attributes, mainly flexibility, strength. These are the ones that I'm more comfortable with, because it can mean different things to different people, and also to understand the energy is not necessarily gender specific. So when you think about masculine and feminine, what does it actually mean to you, aside from what you've been told it means? So for me, it's definitely flexibility, strength, presence, patience. Certainly, sort of as I took the project in a creative exploration of who I wanted to embody, how I wanted to show up. So it was still me, but it was embodying the energy of Grace Jones, the fearless side, the warrior side that is in me in part. And you've got Shaka Khan, who's soft, so graceful, but also very strong, courageous. Donna Summer, so much more softer, flexible. Maya Angelou, she's just incredible intelligence, quiet but powerful strength. Doesn't need to see much, but you just know when she shows up, in the way she shows up in her writing. That's what I wanted to embody. So, yeah, that's it on that bit. So moving on, I wanted to circle back to a topic that I mentioned, born out of the book that I read recently, Law of Hypnotic Rhythm. And it's probably the third time I've mentioned it, because it centres around habits, and this is something I used to run workshops on a few years ago, and I now run a daily habit support group, which is in the link in my bio if you fancy join us ladies to explore and get access to resources. It's all free. You just show up and you decide what you want to do, and I'm on hand to support you if that's what you want. But I thought I'd mention it because habits being something that either can create your success or not. In other words, I'm going to refer to my notes here. It can either pull you towards or pull you away from what really matters. And it is safe to say, and certainly in my experience as I explore the hypnotic rhythm and what's showing up for me in the expression of my habits, is the habits, or the habit in particular that I struggled with and I'm very conscious of and actively work on, is my negative thinking pattern. It's almost like addiction, and it took a lot of work to work through. And I'm wondering if you can relate that negative, and it's how you talk to yourself in a way that doesn't serve you, and until you're conscious of it, and a lot of times we're not conscious of the way we talk to ourselves, and it's hearing that voice that sometimes tells you you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not or you're not good enough, or it might even show up as you're not worthy, you don't deserve to have the things that you have. It's those things, and they're the things that cause you to self-sabotage and therefore move you away from your goals. So for me, in really identifying with the negative thinking patterns that had sabotaged a lot of what was starting to materialise for me, but I got in the way of that, was to really start to address how it was showing up for me, but I couldn't do so till I was aware of it. And that was when I started to get really into the nuts and bolts of journaling. And as you know, I've spoken about it quite a few times on my lives, that I have been journaling now, I think, consistently for 4 or 5 years. And I'm really seeing the benefits of that, because it helps you to identify patterns, ways of being that you may not have picked up on otherwise. And there's ways that you can guide yourself through journaling to identify what's right and true for you. So I'm going to mention again the law of hypnotic rhythm, because it shows you your patterns and how it's like the tide comes in, the tide goes out. You've got as the sun goes up, the sun goes down. So think about that in terms of your habits and then pulling you towards or away from those things that matter to you. So the invitation is to look at your routines, particularly the ones that are on autopilot. And a good way to identify the times that you're on autopilot is the times when you do something, you're not being actually conscious of what you've done. A good example I'll get to right now is when you drive somewhere, particularly if you drive to work. How aware are you of the path you take to work? Because the chances are you do that same route day in, day out. The same when I walk to the shops round the corner from me, it's the same route. I mean, it's unavoidable, but because it's so much done on autopilot, I don't even really think about it. So when you're aware of the habit, that is the opportunity to interrupt it. And I use that strong language, interrupt, because then it can enable you to see it, have your eyes on it and say, I can make a different decision. And what that might look like is, instead of taking this route to the shops, I'm going to go on a different route. Same with work. I'm going to take a different route to work. Or you might decide, I'm going to run into work, or I'm going to walk into work, assuming it's within a reasonable distance for you to enable you to do that. Or you can say 3 times a week, I'm going to cycle into work. The other 2 days, I'm going to drive. So you're catching my drift here. So noticing what patterns you have. I invited you to think about journaling, because it does work, as long as you're consistent with the habit, so that you can start to identify those habits. Another way is working with somebody to help you see through mirroring what is coming up for you, because sometimes it's in our language, and that's how my negative thinking pattern also got picked up, the way I was talking to myself and the specific words I was using. That was enabling me to recognise that I was moving away from the very things that mattered to me. I'm just going to give a quick shout out. Thank you so much for hopping on to this live. I really appreciate you. And if you're still on, give us a wave, because I'm giving you a wave now. Okay, so you've got a habit, you're aware of it. A good question, an introspection, which is to go inwards. I'm going to have a little sip of my drink here, is to ask yourself, what is the payoff? What do you mean, Karen, payoff? The reality is, anything we do, especially when it's routine, there is some sort of payoff. We're getting something, even if it's negative. I'll give you an example. One of my unserving habits, or it wasn't serving me, was drinking alcohol. And I knew to a certain degree that I was using it to numb, to suppress things that I wasn't ready to deal with. This was when I became more conscious of my patterning. Without going into too much depth, the payoff I got, and so the justification I got for drinking alcohol, was that it enabled me to be confident, or so I thought. But the real payoff was actually when I think about it and I've had time to consider, what was showing up for me was it was a place to hide and not necessarily be as I really am. So 9 months in, I think I'm coming up to 10 months next month, and I'm very happy about that, is to share with you that when you start to knuckle into the payoff, you can then really question what is coming up for you and how it's serving you, and that all ties into your why and your values. And I think I've done some videos on this. I'm probably going to consider doing another video on values and diving into your whys on another live. But just think about a quick process you can do for yourself is think of 5 words that describes the things that you really care about. Sorry, I'm not going to join. Is that all right? I'm not sure if that was intentional. I'm going to cancel joining in. But thank you. I've lost my train of thought, so I'll get back on track. Is to write down 5 words that are really meaningful for you, and that could possibly be indicators of your values. You see, things that come up to me is happiness, adventure, another one, passion, another one is, I'm trying to think, another value. I can't think. All of a sudden, my brain's gone blank, and that's okay. We've got 3 for now. The reason why I suggest just to think of 5 words, don't overthink it, just get them down and see what's there for you, and maybe reference it a few days later. Would you still write those same 5 words? And if you were to do that task on a daily basis or every couple of days, whatever feels comfortable for you, you might see if you're repeating the same words. Like for me, I know adventure's number 1, which is why I travel a lot. I don't mind doing it on my own. Passion is definitely a big thing for me. Music, although it's not a value, I'm passionate about music. I'm passionate about dancing. I'm passionate about sharing my knowledge to help others in service. So I share that with you as maybe a possible way if you don't know where to start in values and you're doing the process alone. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you do things in a way that enables you to start, because that's what's important, just to start, then it might lead somewhere. So I would invite you to look at your values, because that also might give you an indication of the payoffs of some of the habits that are either moving you towards or away. So, for example, I'm going to link it back to my personal experience. Adventure being a key one, travel. So moving towards that goal is why I regularly plan going on trips or doing certain things that are adventurous, that lends itself to me experiencing those things. So I've got a trip coming up soon, and that's a perfect example where I'm moving towards that adventurous side. And to a degree, when I did the photo shoot, that was me being adventurous, and it was a bit risque. And that is how you get your reps in. That's what I was looking for when I started to stumble on my words. Getting your reps in is the muscle that you're going to be required to build when you break in new habits. Because when you realise that you've been doing certain things on autopilot, you'll also recognise it takes a while to break the habit. And I want you to go gentle and soft and kind to yourself, because that is okay. There's going to be times when, and think back to, you may not recall when you learnt to walk. Your parents still encouraged you to continue to learn to walk, despite perhaps gaining a few cuts, a few bruises, a bit of hurt, but it didn't stop you, did it? So that's the kind of mindset you want to go into breaking habits and installing new ones, and also recognise that sometimes, and this could be the ego, and this is another topic I'll cover for another time, because it's quite a big topic and it's also an exciting one, I think, because ego is not necessarily what we think it is, because we tend to treat it as a negative, when in actual fact it's just something that to be aware and mindful of, and to integrate whatever's coming up for you. But I digress. When you start to recognise that you perhaps been doing things for so long, why is it you expect to change a habit like that? It doesn't happen. It takes continual process. Most would say it takes 40 days. Some will say 21. I tend to do challenges or a thing for 21 days, but I would say 40 is probably the best, where it becomes routine. You do it without thinking, depending on what it is you're trying to cultivate. But to move away from expecting to change something, because you consider yourself to be a tanker, but to change at the speed of a jet ski doesn't make sense. So you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, which is why I encourage you to build the reps using maybe the 21-day or 40-day anchor as a suggestion. So I'm going to recap on what I've just spoken about today. I've mentioned about my photo shoot, how happy I was to do that and to review the photographs today, and the embodiment of women that I grew up with, not personally, you know that, but like who observed their energy, their attributes, their qualities that I try to bring in as the creativity, or the creativity that I wanted to bring to the shoot, so I can make it memorable and fun. Also mentioned again for the third time, hypnotic rhythm, the law of hypnotic rhythm, which is really your habits, good or bad. I'm going to actually take that good or bad, but it's more, if I was to take the judgment out of it, the invitation, the ones that either move you towards what you want or away, move you towards or away. And the ones that are moving you the way are the ones to have an eye on, particularly if something really matters to you, so that you can become radically honest about what it is you need to do to shift it. Because the habits that you create, or the things you don't do, the things you do, is going to determine your success or lack of. And when you start to get honest about those things that you're not doing, or you're doing that's hindering you, getting in your way, sabotaging you, then you can say, okay, today's a new day, I can choose differently. So, okay, So I also mentioned about journaling, something that I highly recommend. And I also recommended for a few days, maybe for a week or so, just writing 5 keywords so you can start to establish what your values might be. I'm just giving you a rough way to do it. There's more in-depth ways. If you need assistance, let me know. I can perhaps give you a resource that might help point you in a direction. I thought about one last thing that I wanted to mention. Again, I've got notes. Is perhaps to invite you into considering how you view yourself, because I did mention earlier one of the things I struggled with as a habit that wasn't serving me was negative thinking. But I didn't quite tap into what has helped me. It's been a number of things, but I'm going to share one thing. See if it resonates. If it doesn't, let it go. That's okay. You might still get something out of the share. Is to affirm something else. So if you've got a belief, a way of seeing yourself that's not serving you, think of a way you can affirm yourself using the I am statement that can help you shift that belief or whatever's coming up for you. The belief is just something that you keep on thinking and you believe it to be true. So, for example, I am not good enough. Okay. How about directing that energy to say, I am good enough. I'm good enough just as I am. That's just an example. I'm trying to think of another one that's on the spot. Another possible belief you could have about yourself that's not serving you is, I can't do that. It's not possible for me. I know that comes up a lot, especially when I see other people having the success that I desire. So it's a big topic to get into now, but the invitation is to look inwards and say, if I think I can't do that, that's not possible for me. Because that belief is running there, I'm just going to confirm it. And you're like, how is that possible to confirm? Oh, it does happen because your evidence will come up for you. You'll see it. So when you are aware of these stories and beliefs that are feeding into a narrative, that are pulling you away from what you want, you start to soon see how you're directing energy into the people, places, things that are not serving you. And until you recognise and spot the belief, the offending belief that is causing you to think in a certain way that is not helping you, I can't do that, it's not possible for me, you're only going to get it confirmed. So the invitation set is to write that down, but to also write in place of, I can't, I can do this, I can do hard things. That's just an example. I can do this, I can do hard things. Because it's not a lie, it's very true, you can do it. You might not be able to do it right now, but you get to. And the choice of language I'm using, I get to, not as an affirmation, but you get to practice the thing that you are saying you can't do it, and you build the reps to get there. And the reps are you choose on a daily basis, and I mentioned 21 days, some say 40, and see what happens. So it might be, for me, I go out for a walk 10,000 steps a day. It didn't happen overnight, as much as I would like to think it did. It didn't. No, it's not a particularly challenging thing. I get it. It's only challenging because of my schedule, so I do have to create time for it. Also means I get to choose differently what's important. So it also means prioritization, and I get to choose to go on that 10k walk, which means something else I'm not going to do instead, and it's usually a habit that's not serving me. Say like scrolling, for example, which eats up, before I know, up to 20 minutes of my day. So, right, that's the last half of the live, and I mentioned about thinking about replacing beliefs that are not serving you using I am statements, affirmations they call. So I'm going to share one that I heard today that I absolutely love. It is only important what I believe about myself. And I think that really goes out to those people that often care more about what other people think than they think about themselves. It is only important what I believe about myself. So I'm going to run through again what I spoke about on this live. Take what resonates, let go of what doesn't. I mentioned about photographs, really pushing your comfort zone, doing something for you that you can have fun with, that you can enjoy. For me, it was a photo shoot. I've got some other things planned throughout the year. I mentioned about the law of hypnotic rhythm. I invite you to do your own research. I'll probably mention it again on another live or two. There are other topics that I intend to delve into. It's just that I felt called because of how we get in our way in self-sabotage. So the invitation is to really look at your habits. What payoff are you getting? Because ultimately, if it's moving you away from the things that are really important to you, then it's worth replacing the habit, getting the reps in, the reps being the repetition, doing it with consistency is key. I mentioned about in my experience, negative thinking patterns, because your hypnotic rhythm is about patterning. I didn't go too deeply into that, but it did tie in nicely with affirmations because of the beliefs that we might hold about ourselves that may not be serving you. Only you will know what's right and true for you. But the invitation to journal, you will start to pick up on your patterning and habits. I can guarantee you, if you keep up the habit, and there's so many places you can get journal prompts. I just realised I'm running out of power, so I do need to wrap up. So that's why I want to mention this nugget. Don't believe everything you think. So critical, start to challenge, and that's an introspection, an inward thing for you to work on. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for the waves, thank you for tuning in. I hope you got value. I'd really appreciate it if you can comment, like and share if you got value from this live. I'd also appreciate it if you can make any recommendations for any topics that you'd like me to dive into or discuss. I'm more than open to that. I've mentioned it on previous lives. I see this as no reason not to keep up. So do comment or inbox me if you don't feel comfortable with dropping a comment on this live. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. and I'll return again next week. Take care. Goodbye.